Welcome back to part 2 of Sound Art Sundays with Jean-Francois Primeau. Jean-Francois, can you tell our viewers a little bit about your art practice?
So my art practice is mostly revolving around music and sound arts. Though I did do a few other excursions, like incursions in other fields. I did do installation works, and also my first studies were in cinema actually. However, I never really went that far in the video medium, but I did take from that all the narrative aspects of how cinema works usually, and translated that into my music practice usually. Um, so try to do stuff that's really narrative, and while at the same time being quite abstract as music is, because music in itself doesn't mean anything at all. We can try to induce ideas to the listeners, but if it's just pure music, you can't say anything. You can suggest emotions, but it's always going to be up to the listener to make up whatever story it's from.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you weave that narrative into the sound composition and maybe talk to us about one of your installations?
Mhm. Right. So usually, what I'll do is for my compositions, for my more electroacoustic work, I'll usually have pretty much electronic sounds, and then layer that with the sounds that could remind us of wildlife, insects, sounds from the city, all these stuff. Uh, and I place them and organize them in a way that will tell a story that there's no set stories. Basically, you do what you want with it. But by introducing sounds that remind us of real life, then I think it can talk more to people. Especially something that really struck me while I was doing my studies in electroacoustic composition was that you really need to train your ear to be able to properly, may I say properly, appreciate that music, in the sense that it's often too abstract for people who are just casual listeners, let's say. My idea was, if I introduce uh, narrative aspects into the very abstract sound compositions, then it might talk more to people who might be a bit lost with just weird sounds flying around. But then if they can say, oh, I recognize that sound, and then they can try and have something to hold on to guide them through the piece, basically.
Mm, yeah.
Yep.
I think I was reading in one of your artistic statements about like a historic narrative that you've
Mhm.
weaved through some of your pieces and
Mhm.
layering that with the abstract sounds. I know last week Fiona, or the week before, Fiona was talking to the Hamilton Perambulatory Unit about how they're making a layer cake of Port Hope voices. Um,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing is that you're doing something a bit similar through a narrative, like it making a collage almost with sound
Mhm.
and kind of tying those abstract compositions, musical compositions with historic context and
Mhm.
maybe educational content.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes in my practice, it's more like I get to work on pieces for museums, for example. So I have my client who will be doing some kind of an installation, and then they need like sound, soundscape to to make it come to life, basically. And usually these are very turned towards historical settings, and historical museums and stuff like that. And I find it really interesting, because what happens then is that it's not so much about the music as to recreate the what the soundscape from that era was. So like when the first European colonists were coming over, or something like that. And it's a big job of thinking, okay, so what was the soundscape back then? And so you have to think, okay, so all city noises obviously were not the same ones, but there were things back then that were much more prevalent than today, that were more keynote sounds that maybe have disappeared from the urban soundscape for today. So that's one part of the work that I like to do is so yeah, blend realism and abstract depending on the project. So I weight these differently. And also, I think in the end, that's what I tried to do with the piece for Port Hope here for this project, is I tried to find a balance of what I call, inspired from the literature movement, magical realism. So basically, something that's very realistic in the sense that it's very grounded um, in in real life. But I try to add elements that are, will make the listeners think, okay, so this is a sound of, whatever was happening in that building at that time, but yet it's kind of like blurring with abstract stuff that will kind of induce like I'd say like a dreamscape a bit, maybe, if I can say.
Yeah. That term came up in the last interview as well, like this kind of notion of magical realism, but like just this magic that people associate with Port Hope as well. So that's interesting that you're picking that up through your soundscape or your dream state and creating like more of that feeling.
Definitely. I think it depends on your influences, obviously, but I think it's a really fun thing to play with, just because it gives you so much freedom to to explore what could have been reality, basically.
Yeah. Do you want to tell our viewers a little bit more about the project that you're working on for us? Like, how much of a clue do you want to give them without giving it away?
Oh, I can give. Well, I think quite a bit of information, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't do it too long, but just to set a bit the expectations with you, but not too much.
Yeah.
So the project is. I really went for. I don't know why, but I really like sci-fi, so I went for a sci-fi story. And what I was doing at first was, as I said, I was researching Port Hope's history. And I realized that many of the buildings that made Port Hope throughout the years basically were built up and then torn down through fires or just like old age or something like that. And I realized that the city, what it looked like then, is really different from now. And some places, where there used to be big mills of that basically brought in all the money that made Port Hope prosperous, are long gone and forgotten, basically. And now there's like a parking lot instead at that space. So I thought to myself, okay, so let's have some kind of a time traveling idea in there. And what I like to do also is to have the participants, so the listeners being participants in these stories. So that's one of the main goals of the new app that Critical Mass is developing. So it's going to be interactive. You take part in the story. There's multiple endings. And so you might redo it multiple times and you'll have new content. And you help someone, a time traveler person, to resolve an issue that which I won't give too much clues there. And basically you explore the past of Port Hope in the hope to resolve the dilemma there.
Yeah, that's gonna be so fun. And and I think you've designed it with multiple ages in mind, so that it will appeal to like younger listeners and older alike.
So when I was saying that I find that sometimes abstract music is too abstract for people to really appreciate. That's something I've done is with this piece is I'm trying to give a bit of something for everyone. So there is a bit more abstract music. There is very concrete soundscapes also. There are quite a bit of dialogue between characters. And people talking to the listener, yet well, you can't interact with them still. And I tried to so some parts are game elements, some parts are historical facts. I tried to be pretty wide with this one.
Yeah, yeah, and I think so. And there's also like a larger kind of underlying message behind the whole concept as well, which I think we won't give that away either.
No, I think it's part of today's concerns about ecology and taking care of not overusing natural resources and stuff like that. So,
What do you hope that the people of Port Hope really take away from your soundscape? Do you have any visions or goals in mind?
Well, I think for me is just to explore different aspects from the past that might have been forgotten along the way, because there's a surprisingly big amount of I'd say like miscellaneous fun facts that happen in Port Hope throughout its history, and sometimes we don't realize that necessarily. And by doing that sound walk, I hope that people will be re-exposed or exposed for the first time to some of these quite surprising facts, basically. And make them think and see the city a bit differently, and try to recapture how it was in the past, and what's its legacy and how it affected today.
I think that's really wonderful, like to help preserve those stories and share them through a new lens, and animate these public spaces, and just think of what the past was, and think ahead to what the future will hold as well. We're really excited to see it all come to life. I know the app developers are starting to test away now, so we're planning to launch in the fall, and hopefully we can get you back to Port Hope to kind of walk through the soundscape with us at that point, and maybe meet some of the community members, take them on a little walk,
it would be my
or
pleasure
observe
to,
how they unfold the adventures.
Indeed, it would be my pleasure to like do maybe a commentary walk, maybe even.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be so fun. Well, Jean-Francois, thank you so much. I'm not going to keep you up too late. I know Raphael is probably going to be awake again soon, just as you're starting to unwind and get sleepy.
He's sleeping now, so he's going to be awake very soon. That's how the evenings goes.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks again for sharing those little clues with us. And I think we're going to be able to share like a little sound bite for people to give them an extra teaser. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So I'll provide probably, I think when I first started the project, I did many small soundscapes for each of the spots to visit. And I think there's one I did too many. So I might try and dig that one up and
bonus have it as a teaser.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie, and see you soon. And thanks for doing these videos. It's really super interesting.
For this long weekend, we have some bonus content for you. So tune in tomorrow for an additional day of Sound Art Sunday. We have more from Jean-Francois Primeau. In the meantime, have a listen to this extract of one of his soundscapes that won't be in our app, but is bonus content for you. Happy Sound Art Sundays.